right, gentlemen, I see we are all back in one piece. There's so much to cover today. There's so much to talk about. Welcome, Enda. Welcome, Vuyo. Welcome, Hugh. Welcome, Jade. I'm not going to waste any time, gents. Enda, I'm going to start off with you. I mean, they just mentioned the Irish squad. Are you happy with the announcement? Johnny Sexton is going to lead the men into this 2023 Rugby World Cup. Unfortunately, Healy can't make it. He copped an injury against Samoa. I mean, any views from the Irish World Cup squad announcement?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, look, to be honest, it's very as expected. No real surprises, I don't think. Obviously, the biggest talking point is Healy, as you mentioned. I think it's going to be 5 to 10 weeks. Ooh. So he is a really big loss. I believe he's either 34 or 35 now, but he's still an excellent scrummager and he's good in the loose. So I think, you can't really underestimate how much of a loss he is. Yeah. Now, Lockman, who's going to replace him, or has replaced him really, isn't a bad player at all. But, he's only won 2 of his last 3 caps in the last 2 weeks. But he did impress. Like, I know he did tour New Zealand with Ireland last year. So he is a good player, and he was involved in Munster when they won the URC last season. But I don't think he's a match for like a straight replacement for Healy. So definitely a big loss. Who else missed out? Like Stockdale missed out. I don't know if that's a major talking point, I suppose, because he's been out injured for quite a while. Earls is in, despite picking up a niggle before the game yesterday, which I think is probably the right call because he can cover the wing and he can also cover 13 as well. Other probably major players missed out would be Kieran Frawley, Prendergast from a Connacht perspective, Jeremy Byrne and Tom Stewart. But really, I don't think, looking at that squad, even if you go online now, you'll see very few. The only real talking point is Healy.
Yeah.
So for me, it's as expected. It's a very good squad, but I am now worried about the front row. But yeah, overall quite happy, but no real surprises.
Hugh, from your side, have you seen the squad yet?
Yeah, I've seen the squad. I agree with Enda. I don't think there's really much surprise or much talking point. I think, okay, with the worry about the front row, but I think with the rest of the, from lock back to number 8, I think there's, a good, every player there could easily be a starter. I think there's not much drop off in quality. I think it reminds me a little bit of the Springboks in terms of the even quality across the squad. It's quite admirable, really.
100%. Gentlemen, we had lots of news, obviously, this past weekend. I mean, Elton Jantjies, Reece Webb could potentially be banned, obviously, over banned substances. We've got, George Mawala's tip tackle. The ban is still going to miss out 5 games. So he also tried to appeal, but obviously his appeal was rejected. And on Friday, I think the big one was the Springboks versus the All Blacks. So I'm gonna bring Vuyo and Jade into this one. Vuyo, last week you said Sia Kolisi had played enough rugby, and obviously Jacques Nienaber had other thoughts, and Sia basically started against the All Blacks. I think he played about 45, 50 minutes or so, and obviously he looks in tip-top condition at this point in time. What are your thoughts regarding the Springboks versus the All Blacks game?
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I had said that he had played enough. For me, he had done enough because knowing the type of injury that he had, it obviously had to do with a more contact-based injury. So, which is why I said he had done enough. But as you said, the coaches had other plans, and then they pushed him. I think he will also feel very confident going to this World Cup. But other than that, if you look at the game itself, what can I say? The Boks came out the blocks. They put New Zealand under pressure. They kept New Zealand basically gave them pressure, and they kept the ball at hand, which created more pressure for New Zealand. And the penalty count was just ridiculous. I don't know how many times he warned. I don't know how many times the official warned New Zealand, because there were a couple of times where he warned them in the red zone, and then after that he gave a yellow card almost like on the 10 halfway line, and then another penalty was in the red zone, and then he gave another yellow card. So I think for New Zealand, obviously they would have to go back and look at how they could have dealt with the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
almost like the game in Eden Park where they came out the blocks.
yeah.
I think for South Africa, it is. I hope this is a sign that keeping ball in hand and running at opposition is better than just kicking ball away. Because if you remember in New Zealand, that's what happened when we came off the second half. We started playing. South Africa started bringing it, and they started playing, which made more positive results for South Africa. And the start of this game is exactly the same. They came out the blocks, they played with the ball, they played more, and they kept on going. So touching on that, I think for me, South Africa, this is one of the best tests they could have asked for in terms of what they can bring on the field. So now we can say, I don't know what the other guys think, but I think now we can say it's not that predictable. The game plan is not that predictable because of the fact that they can keep the ball. Yes, we know they do kick a lot, but they can keep the ball, and obviously when they keep the ball, they're more dangerous.
Fair enough. Jade?
Good evening, guys. Like for you said, they came out of the blocks and, they never allowed New Zealand back into the game. Actually, New Zealand never allowed themselves back into the game with their discipline. I mean, we've seen it a few times at Ellis Park and a few times in Africa where the Boks had New Zealand under the pump. They should have put the game away in the first half, but they allowed New Zealand back, and New Zealand sneaks it in the last 10, 20 minutes. Not this time around. They kept their foot on the throttle. They destroyed New Zealand. It was a marker performance. From South Africa perspective, they were brilliant in all aspects. They were flawless. Although they could still improve. I like how they worked on the escorting as well. Learn from their mistakes in the first game. The escort game was right. The mix and match between, the rush defense and the escorting was perfect for me. They never gave New Zealand a loophole in the game. The defense was spot on. Kanan Moody was brilliant. I can go through the whole team. They're all brilliant. And my three brothers that came from the bench, Bongi, Trevor, Ox, wow. They blew New Zealand apart in the second half, scrum-wise.
Yeah.
Guys, they were good. They were good. If you're looking at that performance today of France and, you're asking the question, will France win the World Cup? The question can France beat the Boks? You have to look at certain aspects. Can France beat the Boks with that performance on Friday? So that's off to the Boks. Brilliant performance.
I'm going to stick with you, Jade. You are an All Black fan as well. I mean, on the All Black side of things, what are your thoughts? Where do they go from here?
Leadership, Scoop. Leadership. For me, you can't be undisciplined like that. You can't give numerous penalties away. Your mindset to come to the game, you can't be... you can't be undisciplined. You go back to the Super Rugby final where the Chiefs under Sam Kane's leadership 100%. Go away 3 yellow cards. Yeah. Now, is it a trend from Sam Kane? I looked at the second half playing under 14 men. What you say to the guys is, well, between 28 note down or with 21 note down, no more tries. Let's work on our defense. Let's take some positive out of this game. But the leadership, they had no answer to the Boks. I don't know, was it the mindset? Did they think they're just going to pitch up on the day and play against a hungry and determined Bok team? There's so much questions to ask now from New Zealand perspective. Their scrums was a mess. Their lineouts was a mess. Yeah. They looked scared. Of the Boks. Nobody wanted to take up the ball in that second half besides Samasoni Tokiawe. Cam Roygaard was a positive. Mwanga looked nowhere. Bowden Barrett, question marks again, easy. The best answer at 15. Scott Barrett, they're in a pickle. This can get harm to this team. after this game, I mean, with Lomax's injury, with Scott Barrett, I'm not sure. I read that he might still face, the DC this week. I'm not sure. But I mean, if they lose him in the first game, they have no locks. They have to go to Tupovai and Whitelock and maybe somehow try and force Josh Lord into the squad because he's not in the squad.
Yeah.
So they're in a deep mess. I don't think it's mind games or anything. I think New Zealand are in trouble at the moment from where they were, where everybody thought they were favourites. It's back to reality. And me and myself and you had this conversation numerous times.
Yeah.
Do you trust Ian Foster? He's a bad form performance just around the corner. So yeah, a reality check. They've got a lot of work to do in this World Cup, but it's not all it's not all lost. They can still do it, but yeah, it's bad.
It's bad. Vuyo, you want to jump in?
Yeah, just on, I missed a point to one of my points. Jay just touched on it. Where was Beauden Barrett, guys? I didn't see him at all. Maybe that's something that they have to consider. Maybe he's not the right person at fullback, especially if there's no opportunity of counter attack or something like that. And then also, I was very impressed with how the Boks worked on their, we call it getting in between spaces for offloads. I was very, very impressed with that defense because they got into spaces. I mean, that's how Kurtlis try came through. That's how a couple of times with Moody getting a couple of interceptions in the offloads. So, I mean, they worked quite well. I mean, it was brilliant to see how they got into spaces. And yes, they were found wanting at times on the outside, but because they got into spaces, there wasn't any chance for continuity rugby. And then also, I mean, like I said, it's just, for me, I never thought that turnaround could have come that quickly.
No, fair. But I mean, if we look at the Springbok strategy, right, from Friday's game, there wasn't a lot of kicking. They put the All Blacks under the pump through set piece and also at the breakdown. They made they made very good carries as well in midfield, breaking through the midfield of the All Blacks. Beauden Barrett now doesn't have a chance of getting into the game if the Springbok game plan is not to kick. So now how does he, as a leader, I mean, he's got over 100 caps now. I think he's experienced enough to take some leadership and ownership within that All Black squad, actually, as a team. But then, do we now, as a question has been asked by mods, if Beauden Barrett doesn't start at 15, do we now go to a Will Jordan at 15? Jade?
You know what? I have this theory of Beauden Barrett, and you guys would laugh. I always go back to that Fiji game they played a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was very physical. And Beauden Barrett and Coley Taylor was tackled and hit. You know, those guys looked scared. And Coley Taylor turned his game around. But since then, Beauden Barrett is a part of physical. He's not the same physically anymore. He really is not the same. He doesn't have that. Where you take the ball flat on the line and, look for contact. That game's lost. So I've got this theory of Beauden Barrett. In terms of that, I think maybe, he's scared of the physical aspect. But you got to come into the game. You got to find ways to get into the game.
Yeah.
Ben Smith would find ways to affect the game, even though, you're not having the best day. You would see Ben Smith be quiet and then he rocks up getting the winning try in the game. The same with, there's multiple world-class players that do it. The other thing that, I wanted to mention on Friday's game, to add on Vuyo's point, the way the Boks defended and, getting between the lines. It's a similar tactic to what the Cheetahs did against Crusaders a few years ago, where they had Fruin and Sanibel Williams at 12, where Epperson got between the lines. It's a similar tactic. But in terms of the Boks, moving forward and getting go-forward ball, if the platform is there, guys, if the platform is there and you're going forward and your back is getting meters, your backline has all the chance, all the space, to shine.
Yeah.
We've seen it in the first game where Rico and Jordy looked brilliant. But in this game, they were nowhere because they were going backwards. In this game, you saw Israel and then Moody looked brilliant. And then Aronsa and, the rest of the Bok team. So in terms of Beauden Barrett, my question is he physically up for it again? Is he still, does he have that heart, that Taranaki hardness in him? Or has he lost it? If you're going to go to Will Jordan now, what effect is it going to have on the team? Because, I mean, they've been going with this not dual playmaker, but I mean, having two playmakers in the team. Do they go to Dwell Jordan or do they go to Damien McKenzie at fullback? If they are going to make the change. I don't know. I think it's too late. I think they have to start Bowden at fullback for the first game. But it's concerning. It's concerning. I mean, he hasn't looked his best all year, guys.
Our UK counterparts have been very quiet. Hugh, you are you're a big fan of URC rugby. How impressed were you by Manny Libbok on Friday?
Look, everybody knows that I'm a huge Libbok fan. I was delighted. Obviously, his goal kicking was getting better. We need to see whether that trend continues. I hope so. Yeah. I think it's like Eddie Jones says, you need to give Tens time in the jersey. And I think the more time he gets, I still think it's, similar with Sam Costello, what I say about him. He's at the beginning of his arc. He's getting better all the time. And I think, maybe ideally the Boks would have put him in a little bit earlier than just right before the World Cup. Obviously, they've been forced with Pollard's injury. But I think Libbok has got what it takes to be the Springboks 10 for the next generation.
No, fair. I mean, Enda, your thoughts regarding the game and who stands out for you from Friday's game?
Look, just overall for this game, I was just completely shocked. Like, I don't think any of us saw this coming, did we?
Yeah, true.
And roll on. What I'm really excited about now, obviously, is that opening World Cup game with France versus New Zealand. I don't know how that's going to go. But I do just want to add, and maybe it's hard. I know in previous pods I've definitely kind of brought up perspective and looking at maybe, like I know we were looking at the big Springboks win versus Wales. We did kind of call out, that it wasn't Wales' first team, but certainly this was pretty much the All Blacks' first team. So you can't, you have to, sit up and take note of this massive performance. But I also just, it is the All Blacks. Like, they are, in a way, I could almost see this benefiting them in a way that they've got this hammering, they've got this massive, huge wake-up call. And now, I'd be nervous if I were France probably going into, because the All Blacks are not, how often, we rarely see the All Blacks make so many errors. We never rarely see them have such a lack of discipline at times as well. To me, from an Irish perspective, this was such an un-Joe Schmidt-esque performance.
Yeah.
And that's what really, really surprised me. So I do think, we don't need to read, for me anyway, I think we need to just bear in mind that this is the All Blacks. They'll be better at the World Cup. And I think in a way, they could potentially benefit from this, because it was what better warm-up game, ahead of such a massive, especially with that opening game at home, with France playing at home in a World Cup opener. So, and obviously from a Springboks perspective, it was extremely encouraging. What a confidence builder. Khaleesi back to his best. He looks better than ever to me.
Yeah.
You'd swear that he wasn't out injured for so long. So many positive things from a Springbok perspective, but we've touched on a lot of those. But for me, let's think about, let's just realise this is the All Blacks. They'll be okay. And even with Beauden Barrett, I think he'll be back stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll learn from this. But it's the All Blacks we're talking about here. I think they'll be okay. And I think in a way this will be a good wake-up call.
No, fair enough. Staying with the UK counterparts, before we move on to the big upset of the weekend, can we now say the Springboks are definitely favourites to go all the way in France? This is for the group as well. Don't be shy. Don't all jump in at once.
I don't know who's favourites anymore. Before Friday, I thought the New Zealand were nailed on. And before that, I thought France were nailed on.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to flip-flop again.
Yeah, well,
I'm just going to keep quiet.
Well, the French just put 40 on Australia in 10 minutes
Everybody
ago.
puts 40 on Australia.
This is great, though, isn't it? We none of us, well, I know only you has spoken, but I can't predict who's going to win this. That's what makes this bloody exciting. We've all been complaining about, how many good teams are in the same groups together.
Yeah.
But for me, this is going to be such an open World Cup. But I don't know I'd love to hear the other guys' thoughts on this, but I can't.
Before I let
again,
you,
similar to you, I would have said the All Blacks, but after Friday, I'd say Springboks.
Yeah, but before I let you go, and you guys are quietly confident playing on the other side of these warm-up games. You're not really playing tier 1 nations, playing Portugal, playing Samoa, which was a bit of a struggle, obviously. But how is the mood in Ireland, especially now after the announcement of the team? I think everyone is quite positive. Everyone didn't have any issues with the squad, like we said. But in terms of going into the World Cup, how confident do you think Ireland can go? How far do you think Ireland can go?
How far do I think Ireland can go? I think we can genuinely make the semis, the elusive semis this time around. I really do, if we don't get injuries in key positions. But from an Irish perspective, like, we're very well grounded. We don't, like, a lot of Irish people would say that we'll probably get knocked out in the quarters against either France or New Zealand. But obviously, yeah, I'd say it's a minority of people are quietly confident that we can get to the semis.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are also just realistic in terms of the amount of talent we're going to face in that quarterfinal. But for me, I think with the game plan and with the players that we have, we can certainly get far. But I would say that the semi-final is probably the limit for us.
Yeah. I mean, after watching the Springboks as well, probably a bit nervy going into those group games. I think it's the last game of September or in the first week of October against the Springboks. But obviously, you guys will have built up some combinations and some momentum going into that game. I think that game everyone is looking forward to. Guys, over the weekend, Fiji upset England in Twickenham. I mean, this is your favorite headline, actually. Congratulations to Fiji. We've been talking about Bothwick. We've been talking about England over the past couple of weeks. It seems like nothing has changed. We are 4 weeks in. Nothing has changed. It's the same old England. They look lethargic. They look directionless, structureless. There's really nothing positive anyone can say. All we are seeing is a lot of their leaders busy on Twitter, social media, answering comments, putting out fires. What are your thoughts, Hugh, of the Fijian win, actually?
Yeah, so obviously, all the content that I've been putting out over the last 3-4 weeks has all been, it feels like it's all been either about Fiji or England. How Fiji are on this trajectory and how England are on the opposite trajectory. And, I was lucky enough to get a ticket to go and see the game. And it really felt like a convergence of something for me, and I think, you say about same old England, they nothing's changed. I think England's problem is that there's nothing that they can change. They can't change the team. They haven't got enough depth. They obviously, they're looking at Borthwick now. They can't sack Borthwick. The optics of that are horrendous. It's better to stick with him till at least after the World Cup.
Yeah.
But yeah, about Fiji, you kind of saw this coming, and through the game, I know I like to talk about stats and things, but I was there watching the warm-ups, and I was watching Fiji warm up right in front of me, and they had their game faces on. They were all warming up together. They had intent. They were really snappy in what they were doing.
Yeah. And
then I looked down the other end of the pitch. I could see Ollie Chesham was just like kicking a ball to himself and running after it and things. And I'm like, he looked like a kid just playing down the park. I could see Johnny May was practicing kicking, but on his own. So no one was even throwing the balls back to him. He was just doing his own thing.
Jeez.
And then they sort of did this half-hearted, non-committal backs move thing over on the one side. And I was like, what? Only one team looks up for this game.
Yeah.
And, okay, England started quite strongly. And, when they got their 8 points and then the rain came down, and, guys, it was proper thunder and lightning. On TV, it always looks better than it is. It was a proper monsoon by English standards. But yeah, all the advantages should have been with England on about the 10-minute mark, but Fiji just grew. And even when they got that first try ruled out, Fiji just believed and believed and believed. And I got to spend some time with some Fijian guys while I was there, and they said to me, Fiji, when the sun's on their backs and they start to believe and they start to play with a smile, they just get better and better and better. And that's what they did. You could see Naithalevu, from the middle of the first half onwards, was playing with a smile on his face. Yeah. And I think that sums up what Fiji were doing, and I think it sums up where they managed to get to. England, it's like where we got to with Australia when at the end of the Rugby Championship, there was nothing that I could say about Australia that I haven't already said. And there's nothing I can say about England that I haven't already said. They're in a hole, and I think it's going to take them more than the World Cup to get out of it.
No, fair. Jade, you've also been keeping an eye on Fiji along the way since Super Rugby Pacific, and also along with Hugh and Enda as well. What are your thoughts with yesterday's result?
You know, when I look at this Fiji team, I see a shift in mindset, because I think it was around about the 30th minute, and then it was Rabatamara that butchered that nice level try. I mean, a simple pass that had to stick, and it would have been 10-8. And then England, shortly after that, they had, I think it was Maui. Maui got a yellow card, and then England had a line out on the 5 in the red zone. And normally, the Fiji that we know, they buckle from there. England score, they go into the break. It would have been, 15-3. You know, Fiji under the pump, England sneaks a win. That would be the typical Fiji, but not this team. This team has character. This team has a lot of character installed in them. They have a lot of brotherhood, which was, I mean, the spirit, the team spirit and the brotherhood amongst Pacific Islands teams always been there, but this team has this unity.
Yeah.
Remember, they still got Portia, they still got Josiah Toisawa to come back into this team. The center combination between Radradra and Naisalevo looks like a gem. And they've got a fly-off that can win them the game with his boot.
Yeah.
They had Ben Falipaulo for a few years. I mean, he was, a 50% goal kicker. Caleb Muntz is an absolute gem at 10.
Yeah.
And he's got character, and he's a leader. So this team they look well-balanced, they look well-drilled. I mean, Matavesi at 2, I'm not lying to you, I think he could walk into the Bok team and be on the bench. He wouldn't replace Marks, but I mean, you wouldn't see the difference, because I mean, he's a special hooker. He's a good hooker. He reminds me so much of Dan Sheehan of Highland.
Yeah.
This team is they have character, but you know what? The main thing of this team is they can match you up front. They might not beat you, but they can match you up front. They never had this. I mean, how many World Cups did we say, if only Fiji had a scrum? If only Fiji had lineup. Now they have this. Yes, we don't know. Maybe it was Jason Ryan's work a few years ago and the groundwork he put in there. But they have that now. They have a platform to work from. They're brilliant at the breakdown. They got a kicking game. I'm not so sure of the aerial game. We'll see that in the World Cup against Wales. Wales might put them under pressure with that.
Yeah.
But this team has a foundation to build from, and they can go very far in this World Cup.
No, well said, well said. Enda, you want to finish that off?
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, look, I think none of us here on the panel and our regular listeners were surprised at that English result. I don't think, or that English performance, really, were we? And I think our guest from last week, Catherine Kavanagh, did mention this on Twitter. I think she was dead right. There's been too much focus after this big result on England. We need to talk about Fiji, and look, they were fantastic. And two things that stand out for me, and Jade has already touched on one of them. They now have a reliable goal kicker, so they can turn pressure into points. That is so important, especially for Tier 2 nations. And watching Six Nations throughout the years, Italy oftentimes struggled to turn pressure into points because they didn't have a reliable kicker. So for me, that's one massive standout for them.
Yeah.
And second, just their set piece. Like traditionally, I know it can sometimes sound like a lazy observation about some Tier 2 nations, but you'd often say that maybe they would struggle at set piece, but Fiji didn't, especially against England. That was a formidable English pack. So I think that, like, for those two reasons, I think we need to take note of Fiji. I think they're, as Jade said, they are genuine contenders at least to get out of the group.
Yeah,
that's not a crazy statement, I don't think, after that game. And what's so pleasing watching them is that they're a mature team now. Like they don't play maybe I don't want to say a traditional Fiji style play where they just kind of throw the ball around. They're smart. They kick the ball when they need to. They don't run all the time from inside their own 22. They're smart where they play the game. They do still throw offloads, but they don't throw those 50-50 offloads, which is brilliant. They're amazing at counter-attack. It's just, there's such a mature team for me now with genuine world-class players and with a good set piece, a reliable 10. I'm feeling very good about Fiji. And if I were a Fiji fan, I'd be quite confident that they'd at least get out of the group.
Yeah. I mean, they don't, like you said, they don't throw 50-50 passes like Jordie Barrett, giving it to Kudli Arendse. Vuyo and then Hugh.
Yeah, hey guys, you know what? I've watched this Fiji team. I've watched them, and I repeated the game this morning, and I asked myself, like, how did they win the game? The question that we have to ask ourselves: did they win the game, or did England beat themselves? Because, to be honest, I saw nothing on attack. There's no shape. Shape is bad. There wasn't any structure. What I saw was one-on-one brilliance. The 14, obviously, creating 2 tries. He scored one and then he created another one. For me, the one thing that we have to think about is when the tough gets going, what are you going to do? What structure are you going to bring? Okay, how did Fiji win the game? Fiji won the game because of defense. They smashed into those tackles. They were hard into contact. Forced a lot of ball carries and like errors and ball carries, unforced errors. They forced a lot of that, and because of the pressure they built, but they didn't create anything other than individual brilliance. Yes, they kicked. They kicked. They didn't kick. I wouldn't say I think their kicking was average. I don't think their kicking got them in the front foot, but their kicking was okay. It wasn't too bad. One thing that Jade touched on is the hooker. He's brilliant. I think he actually is right to be where he is in England, in Northampton. He's got the right. He deserves to be there. I think also what we're forgetting to understand about Fiji is that because now their team has started playing in the Super Rugby, they're getting top competition almost every weekend. And then obviously some of their overseas players are playing top rugby. They're playing English Premiership, French 14. Mata was amazing last night. Mata he's at if I'm not mistaken, Edinburgh. They can push, they can shift. Now they're starting to understand professional rugby. That's what's important, is that they're starting to understand. Bringing Daryl Gibson in also helps, because obviously he's coming with a different eye and not having only just Fijian coaches or local-based coaches. So I think at the moment, I wouldn't say, I think it's too quick to say that they'll get out their pool, but I would definitely say they will surprise the teams in terms of performance. I don't think they'll win the games, because as I said, if you're playing a team that's well structured and that's going to bring the right performance on the day, I don't think Fiji's going to win. I'm being genuine about this, and as I said, I didn't see anything. I mean, if you look at all their tries, they came from nothing. It's just they were created by one individual brilliance.
Hugh, I think Jade wants to put on the boxing gloves again today. Hugh, you can go, and then Jade after you.
Yeah, so just to add a couple of actual bits of analysis of what I saw. So I think, we talk about playing professionally, playing structured. There was a moment on the 65th minute, I want to say, where England had a bit of momentum, and Fiji had forced a knock on whilst England were, bearing down on their line. It was a scrum to Fiji, and the commentator was saying, "Okay, Dan Cole's really going to put Fiji under pressure here." For the Fijian scrum, it was their put in, didn't budge. They put the ball in, took it out. It was one crash ball up to get good meters, 5 meters beyond the gain line in their own 22. Pass out to Muntz, who booted it, and it was a line out in the opposition half. It was like no team in the world could have done a better exit strategy than that. It was perfect rugby. The other thing I'll say is trying to get Fiji to play structured. Part of me was worried about, are we trying to get square pegs to fit in round holes? Is by trying to be something that they're not, are they going to lose what they're good at? And I think something that Fiji have identified, something that came out of the France game, was the post-contact meters. Everyone looked at the post-contact meters from when they played France. They got like 350 post-contact meters. And everyone was like, oh my God, that's insane. If it was a deliberate strategy that they went for in both these games now, where a back, whether it be normally one of the wingers, would smash into someone and stay on his feet and start driving, and then a back rower would latch on and drive with them, and then they would make double figures in post-contact meters in one carry. It's, to me, that's Fiji playing to their strengths. That's going, what are we? What do we pride ourselves on? Our physicality and our one-on-one, I can beat you. Okay, so how do we maximise that? So that's them starting to think, and that is them being structured but being true to themselves, which I really like. The one thing that I will say that is a bit of a worry for Fiji is that they do still concede. So England are pretty much the worst attack in the Northern Hemisphere. And they still scored 3 tries past Fiji. And Fiji have conceded 3 tries in almost every game they've played this year. And they've not, been playing the best opposition apart from when they played France. So that's something for them to worry about, I think.
No, fair enough. Jade, you've got the gloves on. Vuyo is waiting.
No. Vuyo destroyed me on Friday. I'm scared of him now this time. But I still want to give credit to Fiji. I mean, we've seen a team. Their sevens program, the last Olympics, had to get on a plane with a bunch of, was it fishermen or was it, a fisherways, aircraft to get to the Olympics. But now look at the decision the administration made. They had Van Cotter in. They had Jason Ryan in. They had Daryl Gibson in. Okay, Ryan and Cotter's gone. Fiji hasn't played, they only played 11 games since 2019, something stupid like that, compared to the other nations. They haven't had a chance to implement the game plan, but they've got a drawer in Super Rugby. They've got, like I mentioned, those top coaches in, to help in the system. They look much better. It's a pity, that they lost somebody like Peter Gasawakulu to New Zealand Rugby. He would be immense in this team. But, sometimes we just need to, we always speak bad about the Pacific nations and the administration, but well done to Fiji Rugby. They've got eyes on them now. In the next few years, they've got big tests against Australia and New Zealand as well. I know penciled in. So for them, they're doing the hard work behind the scenes as well. If they can keep on to players, I'm not speaking so much in New Zealand, but we're seeing them in France and England as well. Keep on to the top players. They can have a seat at the table at every World Cup. It's not just a World Cup. They'll just improve on it. And they need to be playing against the best teams. We don't need to be surprised by Fiji beating England. It can become a normality.
Yeah, fair enough. But we're talking serious structure, and Vuyo is mentioning quite an important point as well. Everyone has said, obviously, quite important points about Fiji. But one question I want to ask then on a technical aspect. If Fiji plays a Springboks, for example, the same Springboks that played against the All Blacks on Friday, how do you see, I'm still with you, Jade, how do you see Fiji handling that kind of pressure?
Scoop, it's difficult because I don't think there's many teams in World Rugby that can handle that pressure. But let's say you box them and you go take them hard up on front and, you do a lot of kicking and you test their escort game, you test their aerial skills. Fiji hasn't answered those questions. They haven't played against a team so far that does that.
Yeah.
I don't think they have that in them. That is why when it comes where I think they'll get out of their pool, I think they have a chance to beat Argentina or England again in the quarterfinals if they get through and make a semi.
Jeez.
But that will be where they are. That will be their limit, And to play against a team like the Boks, for example, you need to be used to that intense physicality. It's unfair for these guys to say, okay, how will we play against them when they've never ever matched that or played against that physicality? They never even experienced it.
Yeah.
Last week they played against France. France never brought that physicality. When they play against New Zealand, New Zealand's not going to bring that physicality. It's difficult. That's why I say, let's use this as a base and work forward on. I don't think I think semi-finals is where they'll stop. The box will be a stage too far for them because they have that physicality, they have that structure. Fiji doesn't have that. But it's something they can work on moving forward and take forward to the next World Cup, maybe.
Okay, fair enough. There were also other games, guys, that took place over the weekend. Ireland struggled against Samoa, but it wasn't Ireland's first team either. Enda, your thoughts regarding Ireland and Samoa on Saturday?
Let's just say it was a game to forget. Horrendous conditions, very hostile crowd. That disappointing injury to Healy. For me, this game is one you definitely need to put into perspective. Samoa pretty much had their first team out. They were highly motivated. Ireland's, it was absolutely not their first team. Made so many errors. Discipline wasn't great, but I think you always have to look at the conditions and how close we are to World Cup. Players are playing with that thought in the back of their head on whether or not they're going to make the squad the following day, and not wanting to get injured. All of these things I think have to be factored in. And I think just even in terms of the game plan, I think we're a little bit more conservative than we usually are. But I think that's probably expected this close to the World Cup because we know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we didn't want to potentially give too much away in terms of set piece plays and whatnot. But I don't know how many of our listeners and how many of the panel actually watched the game. It was quite poor. The conditions, as I said, were really quite challenging. But a game to forget for me. But I just wouldn't read too much into it. Ireland will be much better at the World Cup. But what I will say is England could be in trouble against Samoa, that's for sure.
No, fair enough. But sticking with Ireland at the moment, because I'm looking at what's transpired over the past couple of weeks regarding the warm-ups, right? Ireland is probably the only side who is regarded as favourites going into this World Cup that hasn't played Tier 1 nations. Vuyo, you're a coach. I mean, looking at how battle-hardened Springboks probably are now at this point, how battle-hardened maybe France is currently now, maybe I'll put in a Wales in there as well. Allblacks, 50-50. Looking at Ireland as one of the contenders for this World Cup, I mean, do you think playing Portugal, playing Samoa, playing Italy is preparing you for the World Cup or for the group that they're going to be playing in, especially? Because looking at, even when they play in those group stages, they're starting off with like Romania. So they haven't really played anyone who's pushed them to an extent where we see them under pressure. Maybe Samoa yesterday a little bit, but obviously the conditions and the team wasn't the A team. How do you see Ireland performing in that Group B aspect?
Yeah, I think, look, if you, as coaches, you always want to not put yourself in a situation where you're going to lose players in terms of injuries or anything like that. I think you always want to play a team where you can build your structure, where you can build your attack shape, where you can stop the defense to build confidence. So it's not a matter of who you play, it's a matter of how can you get your team to be confident in certain situations. And I think most coaches focus on attack instead of defense because if you look at Ireland, for example, they wouldn't be worried about their defense. They have a solid defense. They've been defending like this for a long time. So they're pretty settled. Maybe they just want to try a few things on attack, and being given a certain defense or different defense helps build that confidence. If I would say for them, they're probably in a situation where they saying to themselves that we're gonna build into it. We're gonna when the time comes, we're gonna fire because we've had match practice, we've had situations where we were faced with. So that's probably what they're going with. And I think also you have to, as coaches, you have to look at your depth. How much depth, quality depth. I mean, quality depth that do you have? Do you want to risk it? Do you want to play the top teams and then lose a couple of players, or do you want to actually play a few easy games just to get the guys a little bit more confident, especially in your within your squad? So it's not a cast in stone, black or white. It's one of those where you give it a try and you hope that your players start firing when it comes to when it's at the right time. So if you look at quarterfinals rugby, knockout rugby, when you look at knockout rugby, you want obviously to have been tested, to have faced a tough time. So for them, it's easy. They've got Scotland, they've got South Africa, so they will get that. It's just a matter of, can they win those games? That's what the question is.
Fair enough. I think that does make some sense. Hugh, do you have any views regarding this particular aspect?
No, I don't. Maybe Ireland are thinking, well, we always peak too early, so maybe if we don't play anyone good, we can't peak. Maybe that's the theory. But yeah, I don't know. It's 50-50. I mean, everyone was saying a couple of weeks ago that we shouldn't be playing any warm-up games at all because too many people get injured. So I don't know. I don't read too much into it, to be honest. I think when the rubber hits the road, everything will be a different story.
Jade?
Yeah, I think Ireland still has that 2007 case where Driscoll got punched in a warm-up game in the back of their mind. But you know what? I'm looking at the fixtures. I don't think it's a problem. They have Romania up first, and then I think it's Tonga, and then they play the final two, the Scotland and South Africa, so they can... against Tonga, I think that's where we'll see their strongest 15 play, and they'll play the other two games as well. It could be dangerous going to the quarters because it would mean they'd have to play South Africa, Scotland, and then the quarterfinals. You might need to play 5 weeks in a row with a full-strength team.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have a squad. The one concern I had from them yesterday was the scrum. Some overpowered in its scrum time, which was, it didn't look all that promising at scrum. And it made me think, is this backup props? What happens if Portier or Furlong gets a niggle? Are they good enough, to replace them? Ireland 1-15 is a brilliant team. We just go back last year to when Ireland A played their New Zealand invitational team, or was it and the New Zealand Invitational team gave them 50 in Ireland. So it's not really to say that the best of the rest is the best players or they are good. They just haven't been tested in their situations. So it is a concern for them. But from 1-15, they're a world-class unit, know what to do. Everybody, you could wake Gibson Park up in 2 o'clock in the morning and you could ask them what to do in a certain situation. He'd tell you the way they are. They're ready, they're drilled. But the bench is my concern for them, and the reserves is my concern.
Okay, no, fair enough. Understandable. I think, Enda, you wanted to close the particular topic. Saw your hand up.
Yeah, just one thing on, I suppose, Vuyo nailed it for me. It's the build-up. So I get where you're coming from, Scoop, in terms of, we haven't been playing world-class teams in the lead-up. But yeah, the first game is against Romania, second game Tonga, third game, Springboks, followed by Scotland. So I think they can build nicely. And then obviously if they do get through the quarters, which we all think, I think they will, they could potentially be in a really good position by then. Like the problem with the 2019 World Cup from Ireland is that we had peaked too early. That's been the main criticism of that. So hopefully Ireland have learned their lessons since then. And I just think, from an injury perspective, Jay did touch on it there. Like, I am slightly concerned about the scrum now, but other than that, we're in a very good position injury-wise, and that's probably been helped potentially by, we only played 3 World Cup warm-up games, and maybe that Sexton ban was a blessing in disguise because he's a competitor. He wants to play in every single game. You'd see him come on, in a URC game against Zebre with maybe 15 minutes to go, and he's the most competitive player on the field. He's that type of guy. So I think it's brilliant to have him, resting up. But I think we'll leave it there. But potentially wearing signs at scrum time.
Fair enough, gentlemen. Thanks for that input. Over the weekend, there was something that probably took me aback. I never expected it. I think Eddie Jones once also mentioned it in 2001, and I think Jacques Ninaba also mentioned it, but obviously in a laughing manner about this. Willie Leroux pulled out of the Springbok game last minute, and then Springboks were forced to make a change, and Kwagga Smith had to fill into that gap. And then this meant that the Springboks went into the All Black game with a 7-1 split. 1 backline player and 6 forwards. today, this evening, we saw Australia employ the same tactic as well, 7-1 split. Jade, I'm going to start off with you. 7-1 split. Is that the new thing we might see going into this World Cup as well, and the risks and implications that come with a 7-1 split?
I hope not. It's you have a 7-1 split is a risk. There is always talk that Kwagga can play on the wing. He can fill in the backline, but it's a big risk. Not in the quarterfinal or semi-final.
Yeah,
I do that is enough of a risk as well. What if your scrum off goes down early and you lose a backline player early on, so you're in trouble? I hope not. I think let's just try during the World Cup warm-ups. I think it's also mind games from the master of mind games, Rassie Erasmus, just to keep us thinking. Will we do it? Will we not do it? Eddie Jones, I don't know what he did today with the 7-1 split. He could have tried maybe France should have allowed him to bring a new pack on and have even more backs to bring on as well. We wouldn't get close in that game. But I hope not. For the sake of the spectacle, I hope not, because I feel that as much as South Africa's backs are good, they have, forwards are good, they have quality backline players as well. And, not to see, it would mean that guys like Kirtley Aronson, Moody, Mapimpi, we would only see them against Romania and Tonga. We wouldn't really see a lot of our backline players. I really hope not, guys. I still believe that 5-3 is a safe split, a safe way to go. But 7-1, I think it's just mind games before the World Cup. It's Rassie Erasmus, he's the master at that.
Hugh, any views, opinions regarding 7-1?
I just think that obviously the Kiwis went 6-2 for the first time, and I think Rassie took that personally. I think that's as deep as it was. Obviously, Eddie Jones has gone 7-1 today. I tell you what, guys, Eddie Jones is obsessed with the Springboks, and he has been ever since the final in 2019. Eddie Jones is obsessed with the Springboks, and he thinks about them at night, I promise you. Anyway, so I think the Lions on the 2021 tour, because of COVID's positive cases, had to play 7-1 in a game. I think Talupe Faletau was the replacement winger on the bench, which is fine because he's a world-class player. What do I think of it? I don't know. I thought the only thing I think is that it's funny that Peter Steph Toy got sins bins just so he didn't feel left out.
Vuyo, as a coach yourself, I know you specialize within sevens, but the risk element regarding 7-1 split, in your views?
Look, I think it all depends, because mostly when you talk about reserves, you talk about specialists. So if you look at, for example, reserves, you look at your specialist hooker, your specialist loosehead, your specialist tight head, and then your next position from there is your specialist 9. So the loose 3 is not much of a specialist position, because they, as long as they can obviously scrum and hold the scrum, that should be fine. So what this 7-0 split is doing is basically cancelling it out, only focusing on the specialist and putting players that you will need on the field. I'm not necessarily happy with it. I don't think it's the right way to go. But if you're a coach who wants to dominate up front, I think it is obviously something that you could look at. But then what happens when you pick up an injury early on? That's the biggest question. So, for example, if you pick up an injury at wing, then you send your reserve scrum off to wing, and then you pick up an injury at center, and then you have to jumble it all up again. Now you have to move people around. So I think it is dangerous. It is dangerous in that sense, but it's something that coaches do look at in terms of only looking at the specialist. I put out a message on my group the other day about, so you normally look at your bench and you say, this person covers this. In case of a yellow card, this is what's going to happen. In case of a red card, this is what's going to happen. In case of injury in the backs, who's taking over there. So you do have that kind of structure. So you know exactly who's going to go where, which is why Raider came on the wing.
Yeah.
What I would have loved to see, though, what I would have loved to see is certain half of the field, Faf de Klerk plays 9, and certain half of the field, Renach plays 9. Now that's a new game changer. But but for me, it's not so much of a favorite. And talking about Eddie Jones, guys, he took a 7-on split, but when did he make his change? He literally left it till the, I think, 65th minute. That's not the right way to go. If you're going to have 6, 7
that's
forwards,
very Eddie.
If you're going to have 7 forwards on the bench, give the buggers a chance to actually get out there and prove themselves or dominate in terms of, because you could see Tupou worked hard in this game and he was done.
Yeah.
And I wish he was subbed earlier so that someone else could take over. But yeah, that's the way Eddie thinks, as Enda says.
Fair. Enda, you want to finish us off with this one?
Yeah, for me, I don't want to see it, and I don't think none of us really want to see it. We want to see backs come on, especially when a team is chasing a game and they need to maybe take more risks and run for their own 22, for example. And look as well, like if you have a player playing out of position, a quality side will absolutely target that position over and over and again.
Yeah.
And that's why for me it's just too risky. But the best sides out there will target them. And there are some teams out there who probably wouldn't. Like I wouldn't be surprised if an Eddie Jones led team maybe wouldn't be smart enough to do that. Sorry, Eddie, I'm sure he's listening. But yeah, so for me, that's the reason. And again, like if you're chasing a game and you don't have some true game break, like if you don't have your Mapimpies and your Williamses on the bench at the same time, who we can just bring on to, if you're chasing a game and to get those scores out of nothing almost, then you're not going to be able to do that, I don't think, by just bringing on forwards.
No, fair enough.
One of you guys listening is an Eddie Jones burner account, and we will find out which one.
I'm sure there is. And also speaking about people that are listening in, guys, do not be afraid to raise your hand and ask to obviously chime in and share some views from your side. This is a live recording, and we also like to hear what your guys' thoughts are, or if there's something that you took interest in over the weekend regarding rugby, only rugby related conversations. And now what we do every week, so we come to the last part of the pool stages. So we covered Pool A, we covered Pool B, we've covered Pool C, and today we're covering Pool D. And who is in Pool D? We've got England, Japan, Argentina, Samoa, and Chile. I think everyone will vote for the same team going into going into Group D as the wooden spoon. Hugh, I want to start off with you regarding Group D. Obviously, England is there, your favorite team. Maybe share your views about Group D and who do you think is going to finish on top and who's your wooden spoon?
Okay, so wooden spoon, yeah, I agree, it's Chile. I was looking up Chile's results and they've had a really tough time. I think they excited a lot of people when they beat USA to qualify, but since then they've had some really quite poor results. And they haven't won a game, I think, in 6 games. And it's not like they're playing Six Nations and Sanzar teams every week. They're losing to other Southern American teams. Yeah. So, yeah, unfortunately, they could be the whipping boys, which we don't want to see. Mm-hmm. I think Japan, a lot of people still have in their head 2019 Japan. Yeah. And thinking, these guys are still like the best tier 2 nation or whatever. Sadly, and we're not seeing that anymore. I think, Scoop, we spoke about whether losing the Sunwolves, how much of an impact that has had on Japan. Yeah. I think a lot. I think keeping their domestic rugby fully contained isn't really doing anything for them, sadly. Yeah. So I think probably Japan will finish 4th in the pool. I think Argentina are clear favourites. Obviously, they only won the 1 game in the Rugby Championship. They came close with South Africa away. Mm-hmm. But I still think they're clear favourites. I think they're playing better, and I think they will rise to the occasion. This is the first game up, which is against England. Obviously, they beat England at the end of last year. And I just think they're mentally in a better place. In case anyone missed it, they put 60 points on Spain yesterday. But I don't think that necessarily means anything, to be honest. And then, so that leaves Samoa or England for the other one getting out the pool. So all I'll say about that is the last game of the pool stages. England have got Argentina first up, and then they've got the other two, and then they have Samoa as the last game in a winner takes all. And England don't like pressure. They don't like having to perform on the day. So I think if Samoa lose to Argentina, they can brush that off. It doesn't really matter to them. Obviously, you would expect them to beat both Japan and Chile. I think if they lose to Japan, then that's kind of them out. Yeah. But it's all on the last game. You would think that England would have too much, but with Samoa, one thing I'll say about Samoa is they're actually the winningest of the Pacific Island nations. So even more than Fiji, they win more often than Fiji when they play test matches. And the other thing is they haven't had as many players come across as Tonga for the new World Rugby eligibility rules. Yeah. But the players they have brought in, Charlie Faumuina as a tight head, and then Lima Sopoaga and Christian Leali'afano as the fly halves. And obviously Stephen Liwatua in the back row as well. Yeah. If you were to ask a coach, like, okay, you're going to build a team and you can bring in players in any position that will improve your team immediately, they would say a tight head and a fly half. So that, I think they haven't brought as many players, but I think the players that they have brought in transform them, honestly. So, it's tough. Even with the world's rugby as it is, it's a big call to say that they would beat England. But I tell you what, I will be there to watch it.
Fair enough.
No, I think they actually have got a chance. If you look at their previous World Cup records and you look at the crowd choosing a hometown favourite, I think England could be in a spot to bother, not coming out of that pool at all. And if you look at the tweets suddenly with the players, Genge and Marler, I'm not sure that's helping them gain any favourites. So there's no fans actually going to support them.
Sticking to you then, Jan, who do you see finishing top of that pool? There's England, Japan, Argentina, Samoa, Chile.
The Argentina's going to do it.
Fair.
And I think Samoa might be second in that pool.
Interesting. Over Japan?
Yeah, Japan's not up to it at the moment. I mean, as the previous guy said, it's they've lost a lot of momentum not playing in the Super Rugby. Yeah, and also the talisman captain's not there, and they had a huge ban for what's that? Labuskachny, Lapis.
Yeah.
He's going to play that first game or second game or something like that. Yeah. So I can't see Japan going forward.
Okay, fair enough. Enda, your views with that Group D?
Based on form and the Michael Cheika effects, Argentina are favourites for me, without a shadow of a doubt. The runner, the seconds, that's a really tough one. Like, for me, England are in crisis, and they're simply not good enough. And, like, the amount of pressure that Burton must be under now, and I know we were asked on a previous pod as well, I think it might have been you, Jade. We asked where do England go from here, and I remember my answer was the only place they can go is to stick to what they know, which is a kick check game, pressure game, set piece game. But even at that, they're not good enough. They're not disciplined enough. Their skills are poor. So I'd be leaning more towards Samoa, I think. But it is hard. Like, it is England at a World Cup. I think they will still potentially perform okay in that. Yeah. But I'd say Samoa. Yeah, I'll go with Samoa, and then England third, Japan fourth, and Chile last, unfortunately. But yeah, for me, England are in crisis, and I think it was Brian Moore in the Telegraph who said maybe this week or last week that he doesn't see them getting out, and I think I believe him now.
Reminds us of 2011 World Cup in New Zealand. Vuyo, your thoughts on that Group D?
Yeah, I think, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And a lot of people might not like what I'm going to say. I think Argentina will finish top, England will finish second. So Japan, Samoa, third, fourth, Japan, fifth, obviously Chile. I think for me, look, it's not by mistake that big teams perform at big stages. I think it comes with the pedigree. It's almost like what we talk about when we say the Northern Hemisphere has only won the World Cup once. It is what it is, and so I'm looking at what has happened in the past, and I'm looking at what the players they have that are available to them.
Yeah.
Obviously, their structure at the moment is not helping. They have been massively underperforming in terms. They have so many handling errors. I don't know if it's a focus issue. Yes, a couple of guys are mentioning social media tweets and posts and whatever. But for me, at the end of the day, on the field, if I look at Mario Toja, I saw someone tweeted today that Mario Toja is lazy, and I'm like, well, he's probably just trying to save his body for the World Cup, because if he gets injured, he's out of the World Cup. So it's a matter of just putting everything into context. So that's why I'm saying Argentina will definitely top the pool. I think England will come second, and then obviously Samoa, because I think Samoa will beat Japan. What I saw from the Japanese yesterday, there's nothing to write home about. There is not anything to write home about. They're still going on about the last World Cup performance or beating the Box in 2015. Yes, they created a very nice try yesterday, but I can't see anything out of that. I think they will definitely be taken by surprise by the rest of the team.
Fair enough. I mean, let's not take anything away from the Italian performance as well against Japan. I think Italians are really building nicely as well, going into that Group A with France and New Zealand. Jade?
Yeah, Chile will be a wooden spoon. Japan, for me, a year ago, they played against the Allblacks in Japan, and they could have won the game at the end.
Yeah.
But we fell off the bus terribly this season. I don't know where it went wrong. I'm not sure it is. Because Japanese rugby, the club rugby, they've got international stars there, so you would really think that, those players would feed off a Faf and a Damon the Allender and those guys, but they went backwards. I don't know how, because we look at the Pacific Island beings, bar Fiji, it's basically the first time that Tonga and Samoa has played with these guys together in a tournament. So Japan had opportunity to at least beat those two. So I think Japan will in fourth. I don't think they'll beat Samoa. Argentina will win it. I think Argentina they play better away from home. We know it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys play in the north. There's familiar conditions for them, so they'll win it. Then Samoa, England. Guys, I can go 2 ways for England. England can end second, like for you said, which I think they will. But the problem is, maybe England, the players just decide to throw Borthwick under the bus, and just put on a horror show. That could be, we've seen the sport teams do it, where, they have unrest in the dressing room and it affects them. So I hope not. I would like to see England get into the quarterfinals. For me, Samoa, I felt that the eligibility rules came a year too late for them, too soon for the World Cup. I think they needed another year with Sapawanga and, Luatua and Jordan Tufaya and all of those guys in the team.
Yeah.
Although they stood up yesterday. I must say I was impressed with Seo. Mariko Failagi has been brilliant in Super Rugby. Luatua has been, he's a class man, as journeyman, and Fritz Lee as well. So, but they don't have depth. They don't have depth to go into that last game where they will get, maybe 3 or 4 injuries and their squad will be stretched, because they're going to have to play their full-strength team against Japan and Argentina and then going into the England game as well. So I think depth is going to catch up to them. That's why I think England will end second.
All right. England second. Wow. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your input this Sunday. Thank you to all the listeners, and thank you for the guys that decided to write some questions down below the timeline as well. We've covered pretty much everything for today, and we're looking forward to next week, where we start making proper predictions, because the week after that, it's the kickoff. It's France versus New Zealand. They kick off the World Cup first in 2 weeks' time. And yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait. We'll still be continuing with this space as well in the World Cup. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the new views. Jade, you wanted to say something?
One request for everybody on the pod and on the space, guys. Next week there's no rugby. Use your time wisely. Make your wife and your girlfriend your profile picture. Take the box emblem off. Make your profile picture. Spend time with your family. Use your visa time well, because after that, guys, it's chaos. So use your time wisely next weekends.
The best thing is to send it to the lollies. She stays there with the mom.
Thank you very much, Jade. Thank you very much, guys, for listening in, and have a wonderful Sunday and a beautiful week ahead. Let's continue the banter, obviously, on the timeline and share some stats there, Hugh. And obviously, Enda, share those TV rights and links. And yeah, I will continue doing some of the threads as well. I need to watch the All Blacks and Springboks and see what transpired on Friday. Have a great day, guys. Have a good week. See you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us as well, guys. Cheers.